President Trump yesterday gave a partisan rally-style speech at Fort Bragg in North Carolina and did so in front of active duty troops.
And for a little news for the fake news back there, the fake news, ladies and gentlemen, look at them all. Oh, yeah, what I have to put up with. Fake news. What I have to put up with. I got to talk to my friends here today. This is a record crowd. You never had a crowd this big. That's an honor. You think this crowd would have showed up for Biden? I don't think so. I don't think so. In Los Angeles, the governor of California, the mayor of Los Angeles, they're incompetent. They were put into the United States and allowed to stay here because we had a grossly unfit president who listened to whoever was operating the auto pen. And they allowed these people to stay. And by the way, I've known this guy for a long time. He was never the sharpest bulb. But you know what he was? He wasn't a radical left lunatic. He never dreamt about open borders. He never said that when he was of sound mind, which actually was a very long time ago. So sad what they've done to our country. I was in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE. We brought back $5.1 trillion into our country, and all three leaders, they're great leaders, all three said, you know, you are presiding over the hottest country anywhere in the world. And they said the exact same thing. They said 6 months ago, it was the coldest country. I'll tell you, it changed on a date. You know what November 5th was? It was the election of a president that loves you. And that's when it all changed.
And Tom Nichols, you wrote about this speech in your latest piece for The Atlantic, and we're going to read part of it now. You say that President Trump, quote, led soldiers in a display of unseemly behavior that ran contrary to everything the founder of the U.S. Army, George Washington, strove to imbue in the American Armed Forces. Where is the Army Chief of Staff, General Randy George? You write, will he speak truth to the Commander-in-Chief and put a stop to the assault on the integrity of his troops? Where is the commander of the airborne troops, Lieutenant General Gregory Anderson, or even Colonel Chad Nixon, the base commander? Where is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane? Will any of these men say one word? The top officers of the U.S. military wear eagles or stars on their shoulders that give them great privilege, as befits people who assume responsibility for the defense of the nation and the welfare of their troops. They command the power of life and death itself on the field of battle. But those ranks also carry immense responsibility. If they are truly Washington's heirs, they should speak up now and stand with the first commander-in-chief against the rogue 47th. And Tom, your story really went viral last night, gained a lot of traction, has resonated with a lot of people. Tell us more about this argument, because we know in the Trump first term, there were times when the Pentagon defied him, when Secretary of Defense Mattis, others told him no. We're not seeing that around this time around.
No, he learned his lesson from his first term, which is to stack the institutions around him with sycophants and yes men and people who have no real authority in their own right other than as reflections of the power of Donald Trump. Nonetheless, there are senior military officers who had careers long before there was a Donald Trump in office, and they know this is wrong. They know this is absolutely wrong. Donald Trump led these young men and women in not just an unseemly display, a violation of military decorum and a violation of military regulations. I taught military officers for 25 years. If I had walked into a room like that and led jeers against elected American officials, not only would I have been in trouble, but any military officer who had clapped along with that would have been in a hell of a lot of hot water as well, because we pride ourselves on an apolitical, nonpartisan military that serves, first of all, the Constitution and the elected leaders, whoever they are, as chosen by the American people. We don't have a military that is out there hooting and nodding and laughing at ridiculing a former commander-in-chief, a sitting governor, the mayor of a major city. That's playing with political fire, and Donald Trump knows it, and he doesn't care. This is really important to point out. He doesn't care about any of those people in the military. They are just fodder for him. They are just raw material for his ego and for his autocratic plans. And somebody has to speak up. Someone with stars on their shoulders needs to say something and lead these young men and women. It's not their fault, their responsibility. There should be better training, better explanation about why they shouldn't have been doing that. But in the end, the fault lies with their officers and their leadership.
And Tom, we were saying earlier this idea that for President Trump, he really seems to be putting forth this image, this notion that it's his military. It's not the United States' military, it's his military. And we see that not just yesterday with the backdrop there at Fort Bragg, but also the way he is using the armed forces on the streets of Los Angeles right now over the objections of that state's governor, as well as what we will see this weekend when he commemorates the Army's birthday, but does so, of course, on the streets of Washington, D.C., on his own birthday.
Right. He thinks of the military as toy soldiers. He thinks of them as pieces to be moved about, to serve him, to give him parades, to salute him, to call him sir. He loves all that stuff. That's what he thinks the military is. And, as the Atlantic, as you know, reported a while back, he thinks that the people who actually made the ultimate sacrifice, the people who gave their lives for this country, are just losers and suckers. They're just saps who ended up under a white headstone somewhere. Trump loves the pomp, he loves the obedience, and he loves the idea that the military is also his personal muscle, that it's his personal security force to be used at will, which is really what's going on in Los Angeles. What he's doing in Los Angeles isn't really about Los Angeles. It's about setting up the idea and getting people used to the idea that Donald Trump can bypass your local community, your state, your county governments, and just put troops in your streets anytime he feels like it, because he's the president and these people in uniform are his personal security force.
Tom, we talk a lot, and we have for years, about Donald Trump's violation of norms. Could you actually spell out in more practical, real-world terms the danger and risk of a military that is actually political instead of apolitical?
All you have to do is look around the world and look through history. I mean, do Americans want to have a Latin American military that snaps to attention to some caudillo, to some guy wearing a big hat who says that, in the words of a Latin American dictator in the 30s, for my friends everything, for my enemies the law? And the military will be, my muscle to enforce that. That's what a politicized military looks like. A politicized military is the one who says, we decide if we're going to support the elected president. We decide if the Constitution needs to be operating today. We decide where your civil rights begin and end, because we have guns and we have tanks and we are organized and we really represent. And this is where the overlap with the Trumpian kind of real America, who are his people kind of approach really becomes clear. Politicized militaries around the world often decide we are the real guardians of the nation. We're the true patriots, not the rabble in the street, not those people waving flags and standing in front of us, chanting and singing. We're the true Americans who understand the nation, and therefore we should rule. And that Donald Trump has no problem with that, as long as at the top of that pyramid there's always somebody named Donald Trump.
An important piece and important words now. Staff writer for The Atlantic, Tom Nichols, thank you so much.